Hello guys, today's tutorial is based on understanding JavaScript proxy objects. This video is just a video explanation of a tutorial that I've written on an article, that I wrote on Ashnode. I'll put the link in the description of this video for you to actually have a read later on if you feel like it. But I feel like this video should actually be sufficient enough for you. So let me start by actually explaining what JavaScript proxy objects are. JavaScript, as you can see, JavaScript projects are straightforward wrappers for another object and are capable of intercepting and redefining the fundamental operations of that object. Now, there are a couple of things embedded in this particular definition. They are straightforward wrappers. Of course, they are straightforward wrappers. They are basically things that it basically gives you the ability to put an extra layer on your regular JavaScript object. And this extra layer you are adding to your regular JavaScript object is capable of intercepting and redefining the fundamental operations of the object. Now, what are the kind of operations? The question you'll be asking me is, what are the kind of operations that we actually perform on a JavaScript object? For example, so a very good example is, let me spill up my VS Code. Now, so let's say I have a const user equals to this, right? We can say user dot, we can do console dot log user dot name. So we can say node, let me run this. Now we have, let me list the kind of operations we can perform on our regular JavaScript objects. Let me start with that. We can perform a set operation. We can perform a get operation. We can perform a delete operation, of course. Right? We can call a method. We can call a function. Remember, functions are objects in JavaScript. Functions are objects. Is an object in JavaScript. Now, our set operation is basically something like user dot name equals to some name. Our get operations is something like console dot, we can say console dot log user dot name. We are trying to access the username. We can do let me try to set something else. User dot password to be some secret password, right? So I can decide to delete password on user objects. Delete user dot password. We can also decide to call a function. Let's say I have some function here and say validate user name. Yeah. So I can say it will take a name. I can say check if name dot length th is greater than 5. Return correct, right? So I can decide to say user user dot validate username, then I call this function supplying name to the operator. By the time we call, let's call this, I hope it doesn't blow up on my face. No, I'll be very surprised if it does not blow up. Interesting, it's not blowing up. So so I can do one more thing and console log for us to know if our function is being called. Yeah, you see, it's telling us that our name length is not greater than 5. So if we try to console log user.password, realize it will give us undefined, right? Undefined, correct, because we've actually deleted it. So these operations that we are performing are what we regard to as fundamental operations. So your proxy allows you to intercept each of these operations and perform some magic. So basically that is, so your proxy object is basically that exotic object. It's just another object, because in JavaScript there is nothing like, you can't say type of object equals to proxy. Let me say user. You can't do this. You can't do this. I'll explain better later on. You can't do this. There is nothing like a object of type proxy. No, a proxy is still an object. You can even wrap a proxy on inside another proxy. So let's get to work. So in the tutorial, the basic explanation that I gave, which is I have to give credit to GPT. I asked it to give me a basic explanation that I can give to a 5-year-old. So basically, imagine you have a toy, and this toy, you have the ability to actually, you only want a certain set of people to access the toy. What you do, you either keep it in a place and let these people know, or you put it in a box and password the box. So only people that actually have that password will be able to access the object. So basically, that our proxy performs a similar performs a similar function, basically. So now let's start with trying to understand the syntax of JavaScript proxy. So now this is the basic syntax. Your proxy, you create a target, you create an handler, and you set this. Now, as I was saying, if we console.log, I told you that there is nothing like an object of type proxy. Let me say type of proxy. You will see that we are going to get node syntax objects, as you can see. The same thing, if you can easily say type of, let's check if type of proxy and type of target is the same thing. You should get a true, because they are both objects. So we don't have anything like type proxy. Don't think because you've wrapped an object in a proxy that it becomes a type proxy. No, it will still act like every regular object. So that is that. Now we need to move to common terms. Common terms, there is something we call object internal methods in JavaScript. JavaScript internal methods are collections of internal methods that are associated to all objects in JavaScript. These objects, these methods cannot be called by us directly. Now, if we go to MDDN, objects internal methods, let me go to MDDN. Yeah. No. This is not what I'm looking for. Okay, I think there is a reference of it in our area. This is it. So now in our proxy we have, now this is what we refer to. This is the internal methods that all objects have in JavaScript. So these are the internal methods. These are, we have the set property type of method, we have the is extensible, prevent extensions, get on properties, and the likes and the likes. So, and that takes us now to trap. Trap is what our proxy now provides for us. What, as the name implies, is basically a trap is basically a method that allows you to perform interceptions that we actually explained here and redefine the fundamental operation of the object. So that is what a trap is. As we provide some example, you have a better understanding. Now, a target is basically an object that you intend to wrap and control its usage, and it can be any JavaScript object, including functions. I already made mention of this before. An handler is basically a object that contains the traps method that you've defined for a particular target. You understand this better also. Traps are simply, as I said, are simply functions that can be used to define the behavior of an object's internal method. There is one-to-one relationship between object's internal methods and trap. And for every internal method, there is a corresponding trap method, which is what they are showing us here. This is the internal method, this is the trap method. Internal method, trap method. So it is a one-to-one relationship. That is what I meant by one-to-one relationship in the article here. Then invariant in English, if we check the dictionary meaning of invariant. Now, invariant simply means something that does not change. It cannot be changed. It is the way it is. For example, your pi cannot be changed. Your mathematics pi will always be 3.142. It cannot change. These are things that are constant. So invariant with internal method, invariant simply explains the rules that must be followed when using traps to intercept calls made by internal to internal object methods. So anytime, what this is telling us is anytime you actually set a property, like as I explained here, anytime you perform this operation, you are basically calling this, JavaScript will call this method behind the scene for you. If you perform a get operation, JavaScript will call this. If you perform a if you perform a get method, JavaScript will call this for you. If you perform a set method, JavaScript will call this for you. If you perform a delete method, JavaScript will perform this for you. If you perform if you call a method, a function, JavaScript will call the call method for you, and this is the corresponding trap. If you create a constructor, JavaScript calls this method for you. So this is what they mean by this is what I meant by for every internal method there is a corresponding trap to it. For invariant, so what invariant is telling us is when you are performing an operation using a trap, you must follow or you must follow all the rules that you are expected to follow is to see a full list of these invariants. For example, let's check, this is on the ECMA scripts 2024 language. Let me see if I can locate. Okay, let me just give an explanation because I don't want this video to be too long. So basically, it is basically telling you that, for example, if you want to perform a set action, you want to set an object. If while setting the object, if the action fails, you must actually throw an error or return false. Why? If you are trying to, so you must always return the same values in your trap as the regular JavaScript internal methods will also return. So don't let me bore you up with too much theory. I believe you can easily read this up on the article. So now let's go to our first explanation of our first example of how to make use of JavaScript proxy objects. So the first explanation I am going to provide is this particular example where with JavaScript proxy object you can set the default value of your proxy object. So you are given an array of numbers that contains, it has 9, 8, 7 and 3, and so we can create an handler. So this is, in this case, this is our targets, and this is our, everything here is our handler. Let me just rename it to handler. So the handler is an object that contains all the trap methods. Now this get, for example, as we see here, for get, this is the method. That is what we've defined in our handler here. So the get method accepts the target and the property you are trying to set. The target here now is array of number, and the property is the value that you are trying to access on the target. So now what this proxy that we've built here does for us is it checks if the property is in the target, that is, it is present in the target. If it is present in the target, then it assesses then it returns the value for that particular property. If we come here and console log property and targets, you see what I am trying to explain. Node default. Now, as you can see, I'm getting an undefined. Where is the undefined coming from? Undefined property. I'm getting undefined default. Okay, I think it's this. Let me remind. I don't think that's the case. Let me remove this. I don't think that should be calling. Interesting. Console log property, return targets. Okay. Yeah, the undefined is coming from here. The undefined is coming from here. So basically, this helps to check. So let me comment all of this. Let me comment this so that we can follow and comment this. So if I run it again, okay, so let's try to access an object. So with this now, let me bring this down. So with this now, if you try to access an object at index of 9, right? You are trying to access an object at index of 9. That is what we are trying to perform here. It checks if the property is in the target, and then it returns it. Otherwise, it returns 0. So as we can see now, we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we are expecting to get a 0. If we run this now, we get a 0. And if you now try to access something within, let's say 2, you see we get our property, which is 2 that was passed, and the target. So that's why we are getting this value of 7, which is our 0, 1, 2. So with your proxy, you can easily set a default value when a user or when you are trying to access a particular property in a JavaScript object. So this is one of the usage of a proxy. You can return default values. The next one is we can also perform login. So let's say, for example, every time a user tries to access a property on your target, you want to actually maybe send some notification, or you want to console log, or you want to perform any action, you can easily check. So you can easily use your get trap to actually trap the access, then console log so if we look at this now, we can see that we are calling property. If we run this code, you see that the first thing is we try to access the add function. We get the value and target. Our value here now is, we've already accessed it, which is a function, which is this add function for the first one here, and we are checking if it is a type of function. Then we supply the arguments, we spread the argument. When this argument is basically the argument that you've passed into your function, then we pass it into the function by using the apply method. We are calling the function using the apply method provided to us by JavaScript. You can read more on apply method to actually understand this. So as you can see, so you can also use your get method to actually state when a property is accessed. As you can see now, we have it in our console.log to state that we actually accessed name here now. The same way when you access any of the functions, you get calling property with so argument. As you can see now, we called the addition property with argument of 10 and 3, we got 13. We called the subtract property here with 10 and 3, and we got 7. So this is another explanation of what you can actually use a trap method in your target, in your handler to do. So the next explanation is, let me explain. This is not, I don't think this is in the tutorial, in the article. So let's assume that you have a JavaScript, or you have an object called user that has name, that has age, and has password, and you don't want users to be able to access the password. So you could actually make use of your you don't want them to access it. You could actually make use of your trap methods provided to you by proxy to remove or prevent user from performing any action. For example, let's say they want to perform a get method, and we are marking our password with an underscore. So when they are trying to access it, the first thing we do is we check if the property starts with an underscore. Then we tell them that, oh, you are not allowed to access this property. So which means if you look at, if we try to access password here, let me comment the rest of this. If we try to access password here, you see that we get an error, node password. So you can see you are not allowed to access this property. Whereas if I remove the underscore, that will actually prevent the check we have put in place to run. Okay, so let's try to access the password. You see we get the password, but with the addition of the underscore and with our extra check, so we have kind of intercepted how this user object can be used, and we have changed its operation, its functional operation, by making use of this get method and preventing it from accessing properties we do not want them to access. You also let's say you want to get the list of keys that are in a JavaScript object using the object.keys. So if you run object.keys, let me comment this out. Object.keys, that is, I want to get all the keys that are available in this proxy. Using the onKeys trap, we can easily remove, so we can easily filter out any property that starts with an underscore. If we run this now, let me put this back, underscore. If we run this now, we realize that our password is no longer present in this in the keys that we are returned. If you also try to perform a delete functionality, let me see, where is delete? Yeah, if you try to delete, you get an error that you are not allowed to delete this property. So let me show you that. So you see, you are not allowed to delete this property. So these are things that you can, so when you call the delete method, this is the trap method that is called. I forgot to mention that. So these are the, these are the things, are examples of things you could actually make use of proxy objects to do. There is also the part that you can use it for type checking. So let's say, for example, you don't want your users to set the properties of your objects with wrong type method. I know that we have TypeScript, but this could really be useful. So let's say that we want it that our age property should be of type number. If you give me any other thing, I'll throw an error. Our name property should be of type string. If you give me any other thing, I'll throw an error. Otherwise, I will set it correctly. So let's try to set age to a string. Let's run this. Node type checking. You see, age must be a number. That is what we've actually set here. So if you set the correct value, you get the correct thing. So let me run this. Let me run this now. If we set the correct user, okay, I need to set it. Yeah, you can see now we have 25. Yes, we have 25. So which means we've set the correct type of value to age. Now, if we try this on name as well, we get the same result. You see, our name is set. But if we try to set a type of number to name, we are going to get a type error. Name must be a string. So this is, you can also use your proxy to perform type check, call it, or something we can call validation. So I hope with this explanation and examples that I have provided, you now have a basic understanding and high level understanding of what JavaScript proxy objects are and how you could actually make use of them in your daily development. So if you can read more on the article, there are some articles that I can drop that I will also attach some link to the YouTube video description so that you can read more about it and have a better understanding of all the other types of trap methods that you can use and how you can actually make use of them. Thank you very much, and I really appreciate. Thanks for staying with me. I hope I have not bored you out, and I hope I've actually explained to you and you actually understand what everything that I have said. If you like my videos, please subscribe, tell your friends about my YouTube tutorial, and if you have anything that you feel like you would like me to actually explain, please leave a comment. I will really appreciate. Thank you very much, and thanks for coming.